Please let me introduce Mr. Dee Snider to Streaming for Vengeance. Thank you so much, sir. This is such a pleasure. And my God, you are working your fucking ass off on this new record. Like, you really are.
Thanks, man. Thanks for appreciating it, because it is that record. It was that thing, you know, going in there and roaring and just venting, which is what I love about metal anyway. It's what it is that allows us to express those dark emotions. And that's why I had to come back and do another record. I had to get that out.
But you know what? Like, in the last year and a half, the entire world has been struggling with, you name it. But you found the creative fire inside to say, fuck this, let's just make a record and do it right. And it came back really angry, and hey, I love angry.
Well, you know what? I mean, it was a process, because as you probably know, in 2019, I told my circle that I was done with live performing and done with recording. I really thought I was. I didn't wave a flag about it because there's just too much damn retirement flags waving. You know, I mean, we've heard it just way too many times, and we know damn well that I'm not going to believe that Ozzy's retired until I see him in his coffin, and at that point I'll believe. And then I'm still gonna say, is this just Sharon gonna bring him back to life? Because, you know, that's what she does. But I really thought that I was done with that. And then the state of the world, you know, shit the bed, really. And I was letting it out on social media, you know, and I was all on social media and railing and, you know, rallying the troops and, you know, fight back, push back, fuck this, fuck that. And you know, and I was just screaming for people to speak out and speak up, because the loudest voices of the room are these minorities on either extreme, and the vast majority who are in the middle. And by middle, I mean, yeah, we lean a little left, we lean a little right. I mean, I'm a concealed carrying feminist. So, you know, people go, wait, that doesn't make sense. You're pro-choice and you carry a gun? Yeah, I'm pro-choice. That's my choice to carry a gun, and my choice that women should be able to decide for themselves. That's a choice. But anyway, and somebody tweeted, said, Dee, we don't all have your voice or your platform. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said, I'm one of those guys. However it happened, whether I took the flag or whatever, I've become one of those guys who speaks out and has that platform and has that voice. So why am I not using it? And that really started me moving in the direction of doing another record.
Well, when I'm looking at the artwork, it's like it has to be symbolic, because it looks like you're inviting us all into a cage match, and we can't leave. And for most of us, we haven't been able to leave our little cage for a long time. So there has to be something there, right? Are we all scarred by this too?
Well, you know, life is scarring, and, you know, and you got a Slayer shirt on, and Marcelo, he's done some Slayer records, and he's one of the great metal album cover artists. And I've never really had a truly metal. I mean, I know I've had metal imagery or whatever, but where it's always been a logo or a picture of me in some fashion. And this is the first time I went with like an inspired piece of art, you know, and which, you know, like Dio would have, or Slayer would have, or people, you look at it and you say, what does this mean? You know? And Marcelo, we told him the album title, we told him some songs, we told him the inspiration, and overnight he presented us with this amazing, the art you see, this scarred heart, chains, and the doorway, and the blood pouring down, and I said, I love this. I didn't, you know, it wasn't something I would have drawn, but that's why we asked an artist to do it. I said, one thing I need, you see that doorway? I need light coming out of that doorway, because I believe in hope. I believe I am living proof that there's hope. And people, they've got to know there's hope. And it's in my songs. It's down, but never out, you know? So we got the shit kicked out of us, but we can come back from this. I'm that guy. So I said, so give me a doorway. So yeah, the imagery is very intentional, down to the light coming from the doorway.
So tell me, like, the actual process to build this thing. when everyone is in virtual lockdown and you need to be creative. Like what fueled that fire to, you know what I mean? It's especially when you couldn't go out on the road. We're getting close to when people can get on the road, but like that must have been like you had to dig deep for that.
Well, I mean, the inspiration was, like I said, was there in the world around us, and the things I needed to say. So that's always the best records, the best art is created from inspiration, and I was feeling that. As far as the process went, I've been saying that we're lucky COVID didn't hit 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Because if it hit 20 years ago, there would have been no school. A lot more people would have been out of work. There would have been, there would have been the technology allowed us to do things, and it was already in place. Although I have a theory that it wasn't the Chinese that released COVID, it was whoever invented Zoom. And this was part of the plan to make his product the biggest product in the world, Artie Zoom. That's right. And he said, now I have the platform. Now everybody will need it. Anyway, but because that technology was there, and the technology for remote recording had been in place for a number of years, very effectively. And, you're able to live in one place and record and share it and even have it listened to, like when we did For Love of Metal, I did some of it in the studio in Connecticut with Jamie and Nikki and Belmore. But then some of it, I live in California, I recorded remotely, and they are literally in my headphones, hearing exactly what I'm singing as it goes down and reacting in real time, no delay, no sound issues. So we had done some of the album there very effectively. So I was able to record this whole album in a small studio that was safe here. And Jamie and Nikki had their bubble in Connecticut. And so we were able to effectively record. And I said the inspiration was there to carry us over the rough disconnect parts, I mean, and just, we really wanted to make this record.
Well, you referenced Slayer. It's kind of interesting knowing that pretty much your peak, that's when Slayer actually came to fruition.
Yeah. And, and I've only recently, documentaries. I love documentaries. I've learned so much. And bands that I hated Bob Dylan, but I've watched a couple on him just out of curiosity. And now I understand, what was going on and how well, it's not about Bob Dylan here, but he kind of was sort of, people said he's this messiah. He never said he was a messiah. He was just a musician, just making records, and everybody's putting him on this pedestal, and he kind of fought it. But anyway, I saw the Murder in the Front Row.
Yeah. Okay.
And it really gave me an understanding of the Bay Area scene, which, like the tri-state scene that Twisted Sister came out of, very, very intense, very passionate scene. I saw how it all happened, and also saw that Slayer originally wore spandex and makeup. But, but that's okay. That's okay. It's okay. No shame. This. But at the same time, I got to see. So these were separate scenes, and then for us, Twisted Sister. I'm not one of those people saying we should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and we're the greatest bands that ever lived. I'm saying that shit. We had a moment, and we have value, and but one of the things we were major influence on a lot of our bands. And those years that people know, because now they saw the club scene in the tri-state area, so many bands studied, whether it was the Bon Jovis, Cinderellas, Poisons, Kicks, those bands, or Anthrax, Overkill, Carnivore, Public Enemy. Chuck D said if it wasn't for Twisted Sister, there would be no Public Enemy. He used to come see our band, and he said it was that rebellious fuck you in your face thing we had that made him create his band that had that same in your face attitude. So we influenced, and it's funny, I was watching a documentary on Overkill, the one that, have you seen the one that Rat Skates made?
Yes. Yes.
And if you're paying attention, besides the fact that Bobby Blitz studied Dee Snider, Dee throws his hand in the air, we throw our hands in the air. They talk about that and my spastic stage moves. I was like, spastic? Okay, I never thought I was spastic. But they said Twisted Sister played fast, so we played fast. We played fast because I was drinking so much coffee, the band once threatened to fire me. I didn't realize that we were inventing speed metal, but apparently we were contributing to the East Coast speed metal scene with our hyped up, caffeinated brand of rock and roll.
Dee, I'm gonna be going to my mailbox tomorrow to see if Bob Nalbandian is gonna send me this royalty check, because we're plugging the shit out. Yeah, I learned I grew up with that. Keep in mind, growing up in Canada, so we had all the Anvil, Razor, and everything. We also had the infiltration of the early speed metal from that whole area.
I'm going to say Anvil, love Anvil. We toured with Anvil. But I was watching a documentary on Anvil, and I'm seeing them in the rehearsal space, and there's a Twisted Sister sticker on their wall. I can tell you right now, there was no Anvil sticker on our wall. I mean, not that we're anti-Anvil. I'm just saying somebody was hearing Twisted Sister before we were hearing them. So we were one of those bands that was reaching through the tapes and through that.
I will tell you one thing. I'm going to get to this later, but Stay Hungry per capita sold more in Canada than anywhere around the world. We sold 500,000 copies of Fact.
Yeah, fact. Yeah, I had the plaques on my walls are just like massive, 5 times platinum, 6. It went up. I mean, we're not going to take it. It was 10 times platinum or something like that. The single, it's like, or whatever the ratings they give it. Yeah.
So let me ask. This is kind of an extension of the Slayer thing, because the whole Corpse Grinder thing. I'm a huge death metal fan, and were you like aware of the death metal scene in the late 80s? It kind of came after the whole peak of Twisted Sister. So where did Corpse Grinder, and were you aware of the whole guttural thing, the whole Cookie Monster vocals? Because a lot of elders just like, no, I can't handle when Opeth did that. It's like, no.
Tell you a true story, and this is absolute truth. So 93, I'm doing my first radio show. I've been doing radio for a long time now, but I was doing a metal show, Metal Nation. And so I'm doing everything on the show. I'm engineering, I'm hosting, I'm doing the ads each week. I get the new records, and I'm doing everything. And I get this album, Cannibal Corpse, and I put it on, and I'm reading the lyrics. I'm so mortified. I throw the thing in the garbage. I go, what the fuck is this dog shit? Okay. Now this is, understand, that was a shock to the system. It's shocking. And a lot of very creative, very inventive, very great bands, the New York Dolls, I had that same reaction to the New York Dolls. I was so excited about the New York Dolls album. I first got it, I put it on. I heard Johansson screaming, wahoo, yeah, yeah, yeah. I just right off the thing. I go, what the? Threw it across the room. That's garbage. But Dolls is one of the biggest. So it took me a while to adjust and adapt. And that's because it was so new. It was groundbreaking at the time. But a lot of, and I say few of the oldsters actually come to understand. Like my kids were all metalheads. They kept me connected, kept me listening, taking me to shows. And now I understand. I don't call it Cookie Monster vocals anymore. I understand words. I hear words. I couldn't hear anything back then, but now I understand it and I respect it and appreciate it. And I was the one who said, we should get George Fisher on this track. And Jamie Justice said, who's George Fisher? He's thinking I'm talking about some guy from like the 70s or something. Like, did he play bass in Free? And I'm like, Corpse Grinder. He goes, and he calls me OGD. OGD, man. You're always making it harder. You're always making it heavier. He's always pulling me back. I'm going more hardcore gang vocals, more. I want it to sound like Death Before Dishonor. I want it I'm like, and he's always like, whoa, come on, D, come on back. Don't lose touch with where you come from. But anyway, that was my idea. And now, so please, do acknowledge that while I had that initial reaction, I have over the year obviously come to respect and appreciate it, because I asked them to join me, and I didn't realize it was such a significant gesture, because nobody from my generation, if they even acknowledge it, it's to look down at it and make fun of it. You know, they don't respect or appreciate or see where it even has. So they don't even think it has a place, and I do.
It brought me to mind when Dimmu covered "Burn in Hell," and in "Stay Hungry," that really is like, if like that might have resonated to the people that were buying "Kill 'Em All" and "Show No Mercy," but when Dimmu did it, holy fuck, did they do it so much justice?
Yeah, they did, and they introduced a whole new generation, a whole new audience. Obviously, they're fans, and I'm sometimes stunned by, like, when Jamie asked Corpse Grinder was stunned that Dee Snider, and apparently he's a huge fan, when he was on a Liquid Metal, and he took over. You know, when I took over, I'm playing all this really heavy metal. He played The Price. George Corpse Grinder Fisher played The Price, and I talked to George now, and he said when he's like down and he turns to Twisted Sister, We're Not Going to Take It, Stay Hungry, all these songs to lift him up. And so yeah, when Dimmu did that song, introduced a whole new crowd. And it's funny, because when I do it in Europe, I'll say, well, next song is by Dimmu Borgir. It's kind of like, you know, Van Halen when they do You Really Got Me. Who are the Kinks? You know, oh, you're doing a hey, this old guy's doing a Van Halen song. You know, it's like, no. But yeah, that really just sort of, and I appreciate that, because we were a metal band. I am a metal fan. People who don't understand how I could be where I am today, Twisted Sister was a New York Dolls band. They wanted a glitter rock band playing Mott the Hoople, Bowie, T-Rex. They wanted to be the Dolls. I love that shit, but I also love Priest and Deep Purple and Zeppelin and Sabbath. So I came into a band that wanted to be a glitter band. I was like, cool, I'm down with that. But I also want us to have a metal influence. And if you look through the history of the Under the Blade, You Can't Stop Rock and Roll, Sin After Sin, you know, Burn in Hell, Fire Still Burns, it's very clear that we are metallic.
On the new record, like, it's incredible. I'm not aging you. I'm in my mid-50s.
Hey, man, I am 66'6",
and you look fucking amazing. Yeah. Not to kiss your butt, but when you listen to yourself, like because you still have that power and that vocal power, like, who do you actually like think of from the past when you were growing up?
What do you mean think of?
Like in terms of inspiration and vocalist, it's
well, now, you know, when it comes to the more, you know, I have like certain singers, like Alice Cooper was a huge influence on me, and Bon Scott was kind of the last piece in the Dee Snider Twisted Sister vocal, the snotty nasal, you know, I love that, but my more metallic side comes from Dio. Comes from that kind of power singer, and you know, Rob Halford and people like that. So people are hearing my voice. It's like in many ways they're hearing it for the first time. Jamie Josta, when he challenged me, he was boldly said, and I said, dude, you're saying these words, not me, you know, because I don't want people to think I'm suggesting that. He says, you're with like Dio, you're with Halford, you're one of those voices. And I'm like, wow, you know, these are my heroes, and you're putting me in the same, and I'm not saying that, but people are just appreciating what I bring and the power I bring in hearing these roaring vocals like it's the first time.
At what point, like, did you find like the entire like Dee Snider brand that could be an offshoot of Twisted Sister? What point where it's like you just grab the microphone and go, I think I can do this by myself and just fucking run with this?
You know, it was no conscious decision. I wasn't given a choice. I saw an article in a business magazine a few years ago. It was on branding, and they chose me as example of great branding. Dee Snider's done an amazing job of branding himself. And I was reading it, and they had dissected how I had done it. I was going, this is very impressive. If only I actually thought it out. It was pure desperation. I just woke up, had no band. Literally, there was a memo that said, we're not doing what you do anymore. And I said, what does that mean? Not singing like you, not performing like you, not looking like you, not writing songs like you. And I didn't know how to do anything else. And I suddenly started to say, well, what else can I do? And everything I did, whether from radio to movies to television or whatever I did, I just started putting my name on it. But it was really purely desperation. There was no moment where I said, I could do this on my own. It was more like, I have to do this on my own.
I've got a bunch more questions, but can we address this? You've shot down the whole reunion thing. And I'm not going to pull a quote from the Inquirer, but any thought of working with one of the guys, maybe naming it Sisters That Are Twisted? What was the band member from the past, that you actually really bonded with, that you could possibly write with, or is that even a possibility?
No, I think that stuff is called Back to the Future. It's and the public has never been very welcoming with old bands, new music. I mean, you look at the best of them, they ain't selling shit. And people, if the band changes, they get shit for not being true who they were. And if they make a record that sounds like the band, people go, they're still doing the same old thing. It's like, well, make up your mind. Do you want me to grow, or do you want me to stay as I was? What do you want from me? And it was leaving the band that allowed me to not only to grow and change, but I think allow people to separate me. And it took a lot of years. I really think that it took all these years for people to finally distance myself from a very powerful image I created. No shame, and I love it, and I'm proud of it. The iconic image, but it was like an albatross for a while. No one wanted to let that go. I defined myself, and and I had to. I said I don't want to. I'm proud of it, but at the same time, I want people to say, no, but this is Dee now, and I'm finally establishing that. So I really don't want to go back to the future and try to recreate or reinvent something that I already did.
You are a lean, mean fighting machine. So what is your regime?
Not as good as it should be. Okay, so at the end of Twisted Sister, to tell just between us girls. So at the end of Twisted Sister, you can see on many a night on stage, I said, listen, I'm out there with my 8-pack abs, as I was looking at a picture of them right now. They're ridiculous, and I said, listen, we're retiring. People, I want a carb. I want a carb. I said, and everybody laughed. So after Twisted, I just kind of eased the regiment up a little bit because I thought I was retiring. And I didn't retire. I did a couple of other things, solo records. And then after the 2019, I said, okay, this is it. I am done. Now I'm going to have some spaghetti carbonara, and I love cookies. And you know what? Then the gym's closed. I'm like, hey, I really don't need to, I'm retiring, so it doesn't really matter. And then all of a sudden I found myself deciding to go back into it, and looking down and going, oh shit, I got to fucking get back in shape. So my regimen is not nearly as good as it should be. Fortunately, and like my voice, people say, how's your voice in such good shape? It's really a lifetime of I abused it. Yes, I abused it, but I didn't smoke. I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs. I always vocalized and warmed up and respected that I couldn't just sing like that without putting some work into it. So I've always lived a life that's kept me in kind of good shape. And there's a certain amount of genetics. Yeah, they got that too.
Can I ask you a really silly question about your hair? Does it take you longer to build your hair than your wife?
To build? No, because my wife is my hairdresser.
Oh, lovely.
My wife is my hairdresser. It's, people say, I said, marry your hairdresser. And so she became my hairdresser. So she takes care of it, and I have nothing to worry about.
A couple more reminiscing stories, if you don't mind,
I
because
don't mind.
it was a really big moment when I was in high school that some Iron Maiden came to Maple Leaf Gardens on the Power Slave tour.
Yeah.
And you must obviously remember the whole world slavery thing. And I had a girlfriend at the time that got comp tickets. And then she came back after the show, and I'm like, so how the fuck was Maiden? And she said, I didn't see Iron Maiden. I was there for Twisted Sister, motherfucker. So that was your demographic back then.
Yeah, that's one thing, people, they call it hair metal, this, that, the other thing. In the beginning, there was no separation. We were a weird metal band. We toured with Motorhead. We toured with Saxon. We toured with Metallica in Europe. We toured with Iron Maiden, and nobody blinked. Nobody blinked. That was, boy, when tours were tours and men were men. I mean, the shows were sold out. When doors opened, when we hit the stage, the arena was filled. There was no show up later just to see the headliner. People were there from beginning to end. No one left. Maybe your girlfriend, but no one left after Twisted. They, and the bands complimented each other. Two very intense, very athletic, passionate bands, very different, but just rocking the house. That was. Then somewhere in the middle of the 80s, more to the end, people started defining it. And you wouldn't see a Poison on the bill with a Megadeth. You wouldn't see that, because now it was very separated. But in the early 80s, man, it was like nobody blinked. Nobody blinked.
How did you bond with Rod, and what did you learn from Iron Maiden? Because that was the juggernaut back then, right?
Smallwood? No, I never. I'm sure I met him. No, I don't remember, I remember just getting along really well with the guys. We formed around the same time. I think Maiden formed in 76. Is that the year for
roughly. Yep.
Steve around there? And I joined Twisted in 76. We're about the same age. And we were both married, both had kids. Our kids would be out on the road. Jesse and his daughter, I forgot her name, but so they would see, they play together backstage when they came. So it was just like it was really a great thing, and they would watch us, we would watch them, and there was a mutual respect, and which was really great. But we were two different animals. I never saw myself as wanting to do what Maiden did. And I'm sure they didn't really think that they wanted to do what Twisted Sister and Dee Snider did. Although Bruce is one of the short list of frontmen that I hold in regard. I think very highly of myself. When it comes to fronting, is what I do very well. But there's a short list of people who are really good at being a frontman, not just a singer. Frontman is like a different job. And Bruce is one of those people.
We've had some pretty major deaths recently, going back to the whole being immortal and trying to keep your body. How has some of this affected you? It was in the last 2 weeks, it's been brutal.
It's just a harsh reality. So I brought the song Before I Go in to Jamie, and Jamie said, "Are you dying?" I'm like, not immediately. This is sort of observational, it's not a pronouncement. I'm dying now. I guess because so many are dying. And when he first, challenged me, he said, "We need your voice. We've lost too many already. We've lost too many great metal voices, Dio and Lemmy and on and on." So it's a reality. It's a sad reality, and people just gotta. All I can say is just appreciate it while it's here, man. Appreciate it while it's here, because it ain't gonna be forever. When you think about it, when I do the Price, I don't do it with this band, but when I do more. Sometimes I get these shows and they're more 80s. So I'll, do a few more 80s things, and I'll do the Price, and I'll run a video screen of all the rockers that we've lost, and people are crying.
Yeah.
Crying. Because to see them And we have to move that. I'll tell you what, we're moving it along because it's getting mighty crowded. But when you see the entire Motorhead band,
I know,
up there, when you see the entire Ramones up there, it's like, whoa. I just got chill. But that's like a whoa moment. Whoa. They're all gone. They're all gone. That's it.
Yeah, it's really hard, but like the Motorhead one, especially because if you're an Ace of Spades fan or that whole era like that, they just like changed everything. And to
that's
see
the
them all
classic lineup, and there's not one of them left. There was talk about I know this will probably be in your article and probably get blown up. It shouldn't really, but there was some talk after Lemmy died of Fast Eddie and their other band members doing a tribute, a memorial tour. And they were talking to me and actually Grohl about singing. And so they were going to use Mickey and they were going to use, Phil and Fast Eddie. But then Fast Eddie died. And then it was like, I don't know, it didn't seem like you could do it really. You could do it, but it just, with Fast Eddie there, somehow it was grounded in the classic lineup. There was a connection. And when he passed, it was like, well, that idea's out the window.
Like as a fan, were you following like him going to Fastway? I know this is digging deep in the weeds, but like, were you actually paying attention to all the stuff around you?
Well, Fastway, I thought Fastway was a great record, a great band. I love that. And yeah, and if you do your Twisted Sister history, which you obviously do not, Pete Way produced our first album, and he was developing, Fast Eddie had left Motorhead, and he was putting together Fastway, which is where they got the name, with Fast Eddie. And he brought Fast Eddie in to do a guitar duel with JJ on Tear It Loose. And so we were friends with, and I also became friends with Lemmy. And famously, when we played the Reading Festival, Fast Eddie and Pete Way came out on stage to do It's Only Rock and Roll. And Lemmy came out and reunited for the first time with Fast Eddie on stage with Twisted Sister in this miraculous moment. Totally no one expected. So we were very aware of what was going on with these guys.
Hot Love is one of my favorite songs. You guys came out with obviously the follow-up to Stay Hungry, and the whole Leader of the Pack thing was kind of an interesting. And then the next record, I thought Hot Love could have been this major hit. I just love the chorus lines. It's the racy video aside, what a beautiful moment musically.
As you may or may not know, that was supposed to be a solo album. And the record company forced us in the studio. I was talked in the beginning about inspiration, but there's times where record companies force bands in studio and there is an inspiration. So I had moments of inspiration there that was supposed to be for my solo record. Then Twisted was forced in the studio and we broke up subsequently. And I really blame it on the record company for if they just let us go our separate ways, cool off a couple of years, AJ would do Cities, I would do my solo, the guys do whatever they want, and then come back a couple of years later, I think we would have stayed together. For better or for worse, we would have stayed together. You mentioned, so thank you. I'm glad you appreciate that song. Leader of the Pack, that was a misstep, but more because it was the wrong time. Because that song we used to play in the bars and the fans would love it. It was on our first EP with Under the Blade, What You Don't Know, Shoot 'Em Down, and Leader of the Pack for Secret Records before Under the Blade. So we would play it on tour for Under the Blade and the crowd would love it.
Yeah.
And so I thought this was a natural thing to bring back and redo. And we thought it would be this big hit, but it was too slick. It was too produced. The video was too cartoonish. It had lost the snottiness of these five guys in drag doing it in a biker bar, which where originally the inspiration came from. Like, fuck you, Leader of the Pack, so on motorcycles. So, so it's, timing is everything. Been some missteps. Fortunately, this seems to not be one. Talking about Leave a Scar.
Just a last fun question. When was the last time you spoke or saw Niedermeyer? That's a smart ass question.
I do speak to him from time to time.
Really?
Yeah. And I haven't, it's been a few years, but I was did an interview with somebody who had just had Niedermeyer on. And, and the guy, so he did Animal House and he did our videos. He was a regular on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He was a reoccurring character on Seinfeld. He's done other things. And he says, Dee, to this day, I have people walk up to me, what do you want to do? He's like that's like the go-to of all the things I've done. What do you want to do with your life? But he takes it in stride, and he's a great guy, and that was it. And you mentioned that. So MTV had his 40th anniversary this week, and all these different papers and people put out lists of the greatest videos, and we're not going to take it. Still, considered one of the top videos of all time. It was game-changing. It was groundbreaking. And it's probably, of all the things we did, the most game-changing, groundbreaking thing we did. Other things were more derivative or whatever of the bands we were inspired by. But I was just a crazy fucker and had this idea that people thought was literally insane. And it turned out to be brilliant.
Well, I see your pipes, but can you still do 20?
No. Oh, there's a shot. So I've got this is great, neck issues. So I'm going for surgery because I've got scar tissue built up from all the head banging, and it's taking out my shoulders now. It hurts when I throw horns. So I said, I can't tour if I can't headbang and throw horns. So I got to go get surgery now to get all this scar tissue removed. So if you want to know where the biggest scar I've got,